First of all, thank you so much for putting this together. It has been so amazing so far. I've been watching at home, as of everybody else. It's been terrific. And I think this is really the first step in winning back so many people. And I also want to just say thank you to California Governor Gavin Newsom for dedicating some time to this today. I know you have a very busy schedule with Donald Trump constantly attacking you and your state and making one terrible decision after another. So the fact that you're able to
Harry,
give some time here today is nice.
It's new scum to you.
Oh,
new scum, not new.
that's right. That's right, Governor. You're right.
Yeah,
let's foundational ourselves here. But Governor, again, thank you so much for being here. I just want to start by talking about the economic decisions that Donald Trump has been making and the impact on your state. Governor, it seems like to me that Donald Trump is almost insistent on destroying the American economy. It seems like you're feeling that in California. These tariffs have really hurt your state and continue to affect Americans across the country. So I was hoping that for some people at home, you could provide some insight on what they're doing to the state of California and why these tariffs that Donald Trump is placing on countries around the world is such a terrible idea.
I appreciate it, Harry. Let me put it in perspective so people listening can understand the state that I represent. It's the size of 21 state populations combined. It's the fourth largest economy in the world from a GDP perspective. We just took over that slot just a few weeks ago with the IMF figures. Again, $4.1 trillion. That is significantly larger than any other state. And so my state of mind is one of vigilance as it relates to the issues of tariffs, because no state has more to lose on the tariff issue and the tariff question in the state of California. Just think about this: 45% of all the goods from China flow into the port of LA. The ports of LA and Long Beach are where the vast majority of the goods movement in this country originate. 90% of the global trade is done on the ocean, on water. And so the ports have been impacted, dock workers are being impacted, we've got truck drivers being impacted, supply chains being impacted, small businesses are disproportionately being impacted. The tariff chaos, the impulse that is that is the quote unquote strategy of the Trump administration as it relates to the tariffs are not only impacting businesses, impacting trade, but it's impacting the coin of the realm, and it's trust, relationships that we've developed over the course, quite literally, of decades, and of course, tourism. We had record-breaking tourism in California. I think a lot of other states could lay claim to that last year. 11% decline, 11% in March, out of nowhere, directly related to the chaos of Donald Trump, the chaos of his trade and tariff policies.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. And actually, to build off of that, you and your team had a really fascinating move recently, which was you decided to go into the lion's den. You ran an ad on Fox News focusing on California, but also the country broadly surrounding these tariffs. You talked about empty shelves, no Christmas toys come December. Why did you feel like it was so important to reach out to that audience and let them hear your side?
Well, I mean, I've been doing it for years now, as you may know. I mean, I went on and I had a debate with, Ron DeSantis and Sean Hannity on Fox. I think it's really important. Like, you got to meet people where they are. And, I love Buttigieg, what he's doing there. I love what Bernie consistently does by going on podcasts. People agree, disagree with him, getting out of our bubble. I think it's just critical. And so taking it to Fox and getting on that platform is critical for no other reason. 14 of the top 15 cable shows are on Fox. Democrats are watching Fox. Independents are watching Fox, not just conservatives. And I think it goes to explain more things in more ways and more days about the nature of our country. And look, these guys weaponize grievance. It's surround sound on Fox. The mis and disinformation, just the rank lies. So putting these ads on prime time when Sean Hannity shows up there, Bret Baier's show, is important because we know one guy's watching, and that's Donald Trump. And he needs to understand his recklessness. He needs to understand that he's impacted this country in a way, even if he pulls the knife out of our backs on these tariffs, we're still bleeding out. The consequences are profound. I mean, this is a chaos presidency. This is the worst 100+ days in American history. His ability to damage this economy, to damage the reputation of the United States is extraordinary. And what they're about to do by increasing the debt by $3.3 trillion, the impacts they'll have on our kids and grandkids, how they're selling us out, selling you out, this is very consequential. So there's the why. And we need to take it to these guys. We can't be passive any damn more. We're too timid. These guys shapeshift. We're constantly on the receiving end of CRT, DEI, ESG, everything with 3 damn letters. They seem to be dominating. And it's time for Democrats to get off their dust, get back on the damn offense, and take it to these guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've loved your strategy with your podcast recently, bringing on people from both sides of the aisle, having these really important conversations. But what I will say, Governor, is one of my favorite moments of yours is when you were debating Ron DeSantis and you pointed out how he was losing to Donald Trump in his own state by many points. And he kind of stood there with his PR trained smile and didn't really know how to respond. I think, just one-on-one, I thought that was fantastic, but it's a good strategy. I wanna also talk about what they talk about on Fox News. And it seems like a lot of these Republicans have a nasty, no good case of CDS, California derangement syndrome. Your state is the 4th largest economy. You give more to the federal government than you take in. And in many cases, you keep a lot of these red states afloat. So can you please help us understand why these Republicans attack you in the state so often?
Well, what you just said is incredibly important. And I want folks, particularly my friends in Texas, no animus towards the people in Texas, of Texas. You're a taker state, Texas. 7 of the top 10 taker states in the United States of America are red states. The top 4 donor states, balance of payments, are blue states, led by California, 3x more than the next state. Let me be specific so I'm not accused of hyperbole. $83.1 billion. $83.1 billion versus Texas taking $71.1 billion. $83 billion, donor state, taker state, Texas, $71.1 billion. Murder states, 8 of the top 10 murder states, not just dependency states, are red states. Deaths of despair, lower wages, higher infant mortality, maternal mortality, lower productivity. How in the hell are we losing these debates on jobs and the economy to red states? 71% of the GDP in the United States of America emanating out of blue counties, innovation, entrepreneurialism, the dominance of this country. California is the largest manufacturing state. I'm not just talking about coastal elitism. I'm not just talking about technology and innovation. I'm talking about hunting jobs, forestry jobs, farming and ranching jobs in states like California. In states like Illinois and New York, which Trump attacked today, said it won't help those states. 25% of the GDP of this country in just our 3 states. I mean, we've got to wake up to how reckless this guy is and how reckless their rhetoric is, because people don't know the facts. And it's incredibly important that we push back, particularly on economic facts. Harry, last thing, because I think this is critical. Since 1989, I'm in Ronald Reagan's office here, which is just interesting. People forget he was Governor Reagan. So I'm out here in Sacramento at Governor's Reagan office. Since the end of the Cold War in 1989, there's been 52 million jobs that have been created in the United States of America. 1.9 million in Republican administrations, 50.4 in Democratic administrations, 2 million, 50 million. How in the hell do Democrats lose on the economic message? We are the job creators in this country. We cannot allow Trump and the right wing and the surround sound and the mis and disinformation on Sinclair Broadcasting, on Fox, One American News, and Newsmax to dominate the national conversation.
We have Mr. Atrioc and DougDoug, some prominent California residents, and speaking to a lot of people about these issues on their podcast, The Lemonade Stand, and we're really pleased to have them as well. And I just wanted to give a chance. I know Doug had a minute signing in. I wanted to give them a chance to say hello and then also just ask a couple questions.
Governor, pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to talk with you, Governor. Apologize for being slightly late. My internet decided to go out the literal minute we were starting, so that was a fun surprise to deal with. I'm not sure if I missed it. I know regarding, have we gotten to tariffs and stuff yet? If you want to chat about some of what we were interested in, Atrioc.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to bring up, you mentioned the damage of tariffs, and the first question I had was around, I think you're going to have more knowledge, directly on policy and who you're talking to. Where do you think this is coming from? Is this Peter Navarro? Is this Scott Bessent? Is this Howard Lutnick? Is this Trump? Who is making the actual strategy of this, and why does it seem to change so chaotically?
It's all the above, and I'd add Steve Bannon into that mix as well. I mean, these guys are ideological on this issue, and for Trump, it goes back to the 1980s and 90s. He was putting full-page ads out talking about how we were "quote unquote" getting ripped off from Japan. So it's interestingly one of the few things that Trump has been consistent about throughout his career, but he just doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He quite literally, the chaotic nature of these tariffs, by definition, preclude it from being successful. If the whole idea is to get people to onshore and bring supply chain back, they have to be consistent, not chaotic. And we also have to address the fact that you have to be rational. 145%, down to 80%, now down to 30%. In just a minute, he's negotiating against himself as it relates to China. There's a recklessness in his approach. And so there's no strategy, there's no industrial policy backed up with a targeted tariff policy. I'm not opposed, and I think most folks are not opposed to targeted tariffs. Biden administration used them, but the Biden administration had the Chips and Science Act. They had the IRA. They had the infrastructure bill that Trump would only dream of to back it up. So a rational policy that was worker-centered, that was worked in tandem with targeted tariffs. That's the approach. But Trump's approach is total chaos, total toxicity, total uncertainty, and total impulse.
Okay, I mean, just to jump on that. So I agree with you. I fully agree with you. I feel like our allies are no longer willing to make fair deals with us. I feel like like all the deals he promised to get are not coming through. Japan's not coming through. India's not coming through. Nothing seems to be happening. I agree with you. And I think, despite what you said about the misinformation of news and podcasts, I think this is filtering through to a lot of people. People are generally feeling the chaos. Polling is down on the tariffs, on the economy. He was favored on the economy before the election. Now it's down. However, I think it's worth bringing up that this is not translated to a polling boost for the Democrats, in that people are not seeing them as the good alternative to this chaos. They're just getting more and more disenfranchised and more angry. So I really want you to hone in on why you think that is, and what you think the direction needs to change to get people to trust you, and by extension the large Democrat Party, about these issues. Because the latest polls I've seen show that if Trump is polling worse, so are the Democrats. They're both doing bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been historically low. We're at the weakest point in my lifetime, our lifetime, as it relates to the brand Democrat. And people don't think we're "quote unquote" on their side. They see us as weak. And so we got a lot of work to do, and a lot of self-reflection, and a lot of, I think, humility and grace as it relates to the party. And so I think that's most important. I think we have to own up to that fact. It is important to be strong. It's important to push back against Trump. I mean, look, I'm coming from the most un-Trump state in the country. You guys live here. We're already involved in 22 lawsuits. We're suing on his trade policy. We're the first state in the country to do that. So we're trying to assert ourselves from a position of moral authority and formal authority. But you need a positive alternative vision. And you need a positive alternative vision where people see themselves. And I think the party needs to reconcile that. We also need to reconcile on some critical issues that we're not in the mainstream. It doesn't mean that we're wrong, but we're not in the mainstream. And some of these things get weaponized, and they get colored in, and they get blown out of proportion, and they deny us the ability to talk about the things that people want us talking about. And it came to this election, it wasn't just about inflation, it was about interest rates and the anxieties around car loans and student loans, and issues related to rents and mortgage. And Democrats also need to be, and I've been on the receiving end of the critique on this, and I think it's valid. We need a liberalism that builds. Democrats need to get out of their own way. The world we invented is competing against us. We need to start building more housing. We need to be big in big things. We need to deliver on our promises in big projects. And that's why I love the whole abundance framework and what Ezra Klein is talking about and others. So we got to get our own house in order. We need to make sure we stand tall and affirmative against Trump and Trumpism. And we need to be strong again in our convictions and clarity of our communication and take the offense.
So
Can
I'd love to ask you more about
go for it,
the
Doug.
housing policy specifically in regards to that. So Atrioc and I both read Abundance. I also watched the interview that you did with Ezra. I'm a big fan of Abundance and feel very similarly of a lot of chaos going on the right, but I would love to see so much more happening within the Democratic Party. And that book really resonated with me. Lived in California my whole life. Grew up in Sacramento and then San Francisco. I was in San Francisco when you were mayor, actually. Loved it. And then been in LA since. And something that Ezra mentioned when you talked with him was, he returned to San Francisco after 10, 12 years, and it didn't feel like much had changed or was slightly worse. And so I would love to hear about how you're thinking about tackling specific building. I know that you, for example, pushed higher quotas across the state to get cities to actually build, and there's the lawsuit with Huntington and all that. So I know you've done a lot of work. And my impression, and maybe please elucidate me if I'm wrong, is that there's still so much resistance to building. And when affordability is such a key issue with people voting, I'm curious how you think, we actually get tractable progress on this over the next, let's say, 4 years.
It's Econ 101. It's supply demand. It's not even complicated. And we're dumb as we want to be. We have to look in the mirror. We've got to own this. We've had sort of a NIMBYistic attitude about things, and then we
Right.
complain about the cost of living when we don't want any more building. We don't want anything to change. And the reality is we need to change. For things to change, we need to change. And by the way, that's across the spectrum. And when it comes to housing policy, we have to be more muscular. And look, I've said this before, localism is determinative. The state's vision is realized at the local level on housing and homelessness. So now it's about accountability. And you referenced, and it's not a knock on Huntington Beach, one of the most beautiful cities in the country.
Yes.
But yeah, we sued them because they're not zoning for housing. We put 46 other cities on notice. I created a housing accountability unit that actually is getting cities and counties into compliance. And we're now pushing some of the most aggressive bills ever in the housing space. I just linked them a week ago, quite literally, to my budget. So we mean business, and we're going to try to muscle our way in to make real this abundance mindset. We cannot afford to continue the status quo. And it's literally, I cannot impress upon folks, those of you that don't live in California, this explains more things in more ways on more days in terms of the challenges the state faces, cost of living. It's fundamentally on the issue of housing, and it has a direct relationship to what's happening on the streets and sidewalks of homelessness.
I totally agree, and I really am hopeful that this makes a big difference. One of the things that when you were talking with Ezra, you guys were talking about high-speed rail. Probably we don't have enough time to get into that, although I love talking about high-speed rail. And you mentioned with regards to how slow it's been, but that it's starting to speed up, right? Like the land rights are now acquired, things like this. For folks outside of California, in the process of building a very long train. And on the subject of how long it took, you said we can lament about it, but we've absolutely learned from it. And so I'm curious for you, like the learnings from that project or housing in California, what specifically is going to be changing going forward for whether you, and even just more broadly across the country for Democrats, what do you think are the lessons of the past 5, 10, 20 years that can be, concretely applied going forward to make a real difference?
I talked about liberalism that builds. Something else I talked about is liberalism that litigates.
Yes.
And that litigation is what's drawing this thing out. We litigate on everything. And of course, so much of the challenge for California on a project, and remember, we're talking about a fully functioning high-speed rail system that doesn't exist in the United States of America. I've taken the baton from 2 different governors on this, and that's why I can't make up for the past, but I can learn from them. But I have to be accountable to the present, and we're now on the other side. We're finally later this year laying track. We're on the other side of the environmental review, 98, almost 99% of all of it environmentally cleared. And I'm being specific here. 2,270 parcels have been procured now and are under our possession. So this thing is a go. And I compare that, and I think it's important. And I think it's important. I told Ezra, you got to update in your paperback, your book, because you didn't include the high-speed rail that doesn't exist in Texas. They started theirs 1 year after ours. It's 4x over budget. They didn't lay 1 inch of track because they couldn't do anything that I just said California did, despite the regulatory environment that's very different there. My point is not to excuse California, but to make a point. You got to be big. If you want to be big in big things, you got to do big things, and you got to do them differently. And the issues around CEQA, which those of you who don't know, is something else Ronald Reagan helped build, ironically, is on the environmental side, and the rulemaking and process is easily abused. And so we have to have judicial review, and we've changed the rules on that to 270 days for large scale projects. It's one of the specific responses to your question. I can give you others, but I'm telling you, we cannot afford to make the mistakes we've made in the past on these large scale projects, and we're finally figuring that out.
Can I ask a broader question? I mean, we've traveled, we've been to Tokyo or Europe, and they build trains there relatively easily with less wealth than we have. And if we can't build it in Texas or California, I just want to know a better idea, maybe from my audience, in a broad way of saying it. Why is it so hard? What is the specific challenge that it makes it so much more difficult here than in other countries where they have, again, less money, less? What is the challenge?
I mean, it's fundamentally, it's the rules we've created, and the rules were well established and well considered. The rules were around, a sustainable mindset to make sure that we were transparent in terms of protecting our environment. And came out of the Clean Air Act in 1970. They came out of efforts to reduce pollution, air pollution. They came out of a very enlightened process, but they started to get abused, and they became their own clay layer, bureaucratic inertia and litigation and eminent domain proceedings and process that literally paralyzed us. And so, as I say, the world we invented, in many respects, enlightenedly invented, is now competing against us. And I mean this sincerely. If we're going to compete with China, and I think the most damaging thing that's happening right now is not just the attacks on Medicaid, not just the attacks on food assistance, but what's happening to roll back the low carbon green growth agenda, the Biden administration, all those tax credits that were producing real jobs and allowing us to compete against China. If we're going to be able to change the way we produce and consume energy, as progressives and as environmentalists, we have got to get out of our own way so we can scale up that agenda in terms of these sustainable technologies, battery storage, not just wind and solar, and dominate that future and compete globally. So this is an imperative for Democrats and progressives to begin to own up of some of these regulatory thickets that we in the past have championed, but no longer are relevant to the world we're living in.
Hey,
do you feel like there's? Oh, sorry,
Doug. I'm just going to jump back in for a second. We're going to do Q&A in a few minutes, but before, I just wanted to kick it back to Harry. We've had some great conversations about California, but the chat's already asking a little bit more about what does this mean for me if I live, in another state.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think you actually bring up a really valid point there and Governor, you talking about this earlier of getting out of our own bubbles and being willing to combat Republicans and meet them where they're at. And this is something that you are actually going through right now. You talked about on social media recently this bill in Congress that Mike Johnson is trying to push through. That's all the way on the other side of the country, but it's going to greatly affect the state of California. Some data you put out about it is that it'll strip 3.4 million people in California of their health care and put an estimated $30 billion in funding at risk. Now, that is no joke. So can you talk about what this bill and what Republicans are doing in D.C., what that means for people in the state of California, but also what it means for people across the country?
Look, I mean, I think everybody across the country, particularly, I think the vast majority of this audience could appreciate these. And I was wrong. I said these guys want to roll us back to pre-1960s world. In some ways, I feel like it's pre-1860s and 1960s on women's rights, LGBTQ rights, on issues of civil rights and voting rights, environmental stewardship. But what they're trying to do to truly vandalize and to wreck the Medicaid system and the impact that's going to have in all across the United States, but particularly in these red states. The great irony of these cuts cannot be understated. And it's all to give this tax cuts to billionaires. People are not even asking for it. I mean, I don't see tons of billionaires are not saying, boy, we've really struggled in the last few years. I mean, it's not even all these corporations. They don't even pay the minimum damn corporate tax. Say, boy, we really need this corporate tax extended. I mean, I don't even know who their damn audience is to saddle us up with another $3.3 trillion minimum of debt on top of debt, where we're paying more interest now than we do even investing in our national defense. The recklessness is out of scale, but the impacts, these food cuts, food assistance cuts to states, your state, everybody listening, it's not a 10% cut. The way they've actually organized it's almost every state, not every, almost every state, it's a 25% impact on the food stamp assistance. It's next level. It's insanity. And these guys are serious about it. And by the way, I don't even know if you saw it. They actually now, Chris Murphy brought it up today to his credit. They have in this bill, they snuck in, they're going to make silencers legal. They're going to deny states the ability, like California, your state, to regulate sensible regulations on artificial intelligence. I mean, California is the center of the universe, 32 of the top 50 AI companies in the world. So states like California will have no right or role in that respect. They're rolling back California's clean waiver laws. They're doing that tomorrow, something called the CRA that impacts you and impacts technology and impacts our leadership globally in your state, in every state. So my state of mind is not just about California, it's the impact we're feeling with these cuts and this assault on our freedoms, our democracies, and our social networks of support that we all have to step up and be held to account for. So we're going to be more vocal. We're going to have people's backs all across this country. Look, I just want to remind everybody, Democrats have a lot to be proud of. We should not be on the defense when it comes to the success of our policies and our values. Quite the contrary. And I think if there's any message I just want to reiterate, it's one of gratitude to you guys for platforming this kind of conversation and platforming like-minded people to be more proud, not just assertive, as it relates to the policies that progressives have long embraced and that are under assault at this moment.
Thank you so much, Governor. We really appreciate that. And speaking of platforming, we're going to go to Q&A time once again officially. And while thanks are going out, I really want to thank Doug and Atrioc for joining us again. For folks that don't know, Atrioc's been streaming this to his community of fans, and they've got some great listeners over at the Lemonade Stand podcast, which I would encourage everybody to go check out. You go to winthefightlive.com.
Come on sometime, Gavin.
Appreciate it, man. Trust me, I got 4 kids, so brother, it's on my TV 24/7. So I feel like I'm already.
I want to watch that, man. I want to watch that.
No, I got my Q rating just went up when I get home tonight. My son in particular.
Yes.
All right, cool.
But
You have no idea.
You can name drop us.
I did want to kick off the Q&A section though with you guys, Atrioc and Doug. Just, you've got so many folks streaming right now. Just curious, like what kind of questions you're hearing from them that
sure.
the governor might be able to answer.
Yeah, I'd be happy to pull some from chat. They might not be the smartest questions in the world.
That's okay.
They may be the best ones though.
Listen, I can pull a theme here that I see over and over in my stream content, and this is a lot of younger people, right? And the thing they are most worried about, not just in California, most of them aren't in California, it's housing prices. I feel like that's the most radicalizing thing for all young people is they feel like they don't have a real ladder to the normal American experience. They can't see any possible future for it. And it's leading to all sorts of financial nihilism and crypto scams and everything they got to do to try and find a way onto the ladder. And so none of this stuff Trump is doing is helping, but this stuff was a problem in the 2020s. It was a problem before that. And so I guess I want to hear your thought on that and what they should expect from a different leadership. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, it was everybody's talking about what Kamala Harris should or should not have done. And could she separate herself a little bit from Joe Biden, and was that a tactical mistake, The View, et cetera. But one of the things she did do is she talked a lot more about this issue than the Biden administration candidly had been on the issue of housing. It was one of the things she came out when she started to frame her own economic vision. And it was so interesting, to your point, and to, I think, the theme of people that are watching. It's so resonant because it impacts all of us as renters and those that inspire to be owners in the future. And we have a generation right now, there's so many people writing about this, Richard Reeves and Scott Galloway talking about this, particularly for young men, which is a deeper issue that we do need to be talking about as Democrats. We cannot cede that to the Republican Party and to watch that get weaponized in the way that they do it. The Josh Hawleys in the world, and obviously, I won't even get into the other cohort of folks. But the issue of housing is something we can control, and we have to own that. I passed, and I don't even want to get into defending my record because it's not good enough. 42 housing CEQA reform bills. I'm proud of the work we've done to put more attention to this. But reason I just said, I'm literally connecting my budget this year in California, which is the largest budget in this country, to dramatically more significant housing reform to build more housing, is because I deeply appreciate the anxiety that your viewers and those that are chiming in feel. And we have to address this issue, particularly in blue states. We have failed on the issue of affordability. We own this, and we need to own the response.
Can I ask one follow-up really quickly? Just on that, it'll be really quick. This is my worry. This is my worry on America in general, is that, okay, if you do these things and they work, let's say we do get high-speed rail you can actually get in. Let's say we get housing that actually is coming down in price. Will people recognize that, give credit, and give a vote? Is our media environment so cooked that people will not? Listen, you have to do it first. I'm not giving you credit for it till it's done, right? But if it happens, will people?
But
Okay.
I'll just give you I'll just remind you what I said. 52 damn million jobs have been created since '89.
Yeah.
2 under Republican. The last 3 Republican presidents have one thing in common: recessions. Joe Biden, 16.6 million jobs, blew past the COVID. So don't give me the COVID number bullshit. He blew past it in 18 goddamn months. Excuse my language, folks. Literally 8 times more jobs, 8 times more jobs in the last 3 Republican administrations combined in just 4 years. And he got no credit for it. So what you just said is spot on. I'm leaning in, and I totally get the frustration with that. And so you're right. That's our job. We've got to start communicating more effectively. I love that. By the way, I'm an entrepreneur. I started a small business right out of college, pen to paper, part-time employee, Pat Kelly. I grew it to 23 businesses. I'm not trying to impress you, but to impress upon you my passion for entrepreneurialism. Thank you, Lemonade. I love what you guys are doing. I love that you're talking about entrepreneurialism. I want the Democratic Party to own this space. I want to see this patriotism, service, a community. That's the spirit that finds the best of this country in our party. But we've got to be more aggressive on communicating our successes, owning up to our failures. At peril, this son of a bitch, Donald Trump, is going to shapeshift and convince young folks that he actually has their back, or even working folks back, which is anything but. He just did the biggest tax increase on everybody watching in American history with these damn regressive tariffs. Give me a break.
Okay,
Sorry to be
I got to jump in,
guys.
Oh no, it's amazing.
It's fantastic. We love it.
We are so proud. We're so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for sharing. And our chat is just exploding with questions for you. So I'm going to try to get through one of them. Hank the Tank, I promised I'd ask his question. Question for Governor Newsom: if California's lawsuits against Trump succeed, what will their effects be?
We were involved in 122 lawsuits against Trump 1.0. We won over 80% of them. We crushed them. And that's why I did a special session right after he got elected. And we put $50 million into a fund so I don't have to go back to the legislature to get more money for litigation. We sued on his cuts to AmeriCorps. I mean, the best of America, volunteering and finding a sense of community and belonging and working together across our differences. The guy gutted the program that Sarge Shriver started and Kennedy popularized in the 60s. We're going to win these lawsuits. We're going to restore the funding. We're confident we're going to win on this tariff regime, and that's going to impact every single person listening and watching. Back to that caller or the person watching says, what does this have to do with me from another state? If we're successful with this tariff lawsuit, that will directly impact you because it will be thrown out. His ability to unilaterally impose these tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. He doesn't have that authority. We're going to win that case. So in every one of these instances, we are confident we're going to win. And in those areas we're going to lose, we're going to at least slow down the destruction.
Okay, another question that's coming up quite a bit. A few have asked. So I think we've talked about affordability. We've talked about housing. I think a lot of people are just asking about the homeless policy. And what can we do? I think also people are asking about militarization of police. And I think I think there's a lot of folks who are concerned about unhoused communities and the policies affecting them and the idea of trying to do more.
Yeah, look, I mean, in 2004, California had, and I'll just give you a sense, California is outsized, about a quarter of the nation's homelessness. And that's been the case for over a quarter of a century. In 2004, we had a peak number of people on our homeless count, 188,000. We're just shy of that right now, 20 plus years later. So we've been running in place. It got really bad, and now it's starting to get a little bit better, but no one wants to celebrate failing more efficiently. America saw it's an actual number, 18.13% increase in homelessness across this country. Unsheltered numbers in places like Florida went up almost double digits. And so this is impacting people all across this country. Again, it goes back to housing and affordability. What we're doing in California is we are flooding the zone in reforms, flooding the zone in terms of support, the most significant mental health supports in American history. We just announced our $6.38 billion of new capital infusion, new reforms in terms of helping people off the streets called Care Court. We did some conservatorship reforms that we think are thoughtful. We are doing more to address encampments, $750 million to do resolutions to help people and the underlying issues related to encampments. And we're doing some novel policies, Project Home Key and Room Key, won't bore you with them, that we think are nation leading and are very impactful, but we have to scale it and we need more accountability at the local level. Back to this notion, state's vision, national vision is realized at the local level. So partnerships with cities and mayors, more accountability, but we cannot afford to continue to excuse people dying in the streets and the sidewalks. It is a disgrace. And for those who want to criticize what's happened in the streets of California, you're right. I hear you loudly and clearly. And yes, I look in the mirror every morning and I take deep, deep pause and deep accountability for doing more as governor in partnership with my 480 cities across this state. And we're doing everything in our power to be thoughtful about this, to be compassionate, but also to be more assertive than we have in the past.
Thank you so much for that candid response. I think people are really, really appreciating it. Last question for you, and then we'll do a round of plugs. Okay, so question for the governor. Are there any plans for nuclear energy in the future of California and the nation? And also, we've heard this a couple of times, what's your favorite type of coffee?
By the way, if you give me some fancy coffee, keep it. I can't take it. If it's some slow drip nonsense, I can't take it. Give me a 7-Eleven coffee any day of the week. I'm at Chevron, even though I got an electric car, I admit that. Don't call me an elitist. But if last time I was at Chevron, I'm like, love that coffee in the little quickie mart. That's my kind of coffee. That's number one. What was the nuclear, more substantive issue. So,
I love them.
Hey, guys, folks kind of went nuclear on me. Full disclosure, I kept open just a couple of years ago the last remaining nuclear plant, Diablo in California. And I did it because it's 100% green. I did it because it helps us with the duck curve that allows our battery storage. By the way, 15,700 megawatts, just announced that today, which is unbelievable. More installed battery than any jurisdiction in the world outside of China. Don't tell me that we can't transition to low carbon green growth. We ran the fourth largest economy in the world with 239 days last year, with at peak during the day, 100% renewable green energy. But that included 9% baseload on the nuclear. And so it is an important part of our transition. And I think Democrats, we need, particularly young folks, I don't think we should be as quick to be judgmental against nuclear if we're going to get to where we need to go in terms of our climate goals. And I know that's not universally accepted or popular, but that's my humble opinion.
You got two supporters here. We're both big nuclear fans.
Brother,
we're spreading the word. We're trying. Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's safe, obviously. No one's being reckless here. My God. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I wanted to just be able to do a round of sort of plugs and asks. Again, we started this because people were just asking, what the hell can I do? Feeling alone. And we want to bring people together and give them some thoughts about what they could do, who they connect with. So I wanted to do a round of plugs. And Harry, I wanted to start with you.
Oh, I mean, plugs in terms of social media platforms.
Yeah, let the people know how to find you.
Sure, why not? I'm Harry J. Sisson on everything, HarryJSisson. That's me on every platform, trying to reach every voter that we can and, at least let people know that Gen Z is still involved and interested in making this country better.
Awesome. And where can we find the Lemonade Stand podcast, guys?
You can find that on YouTube at Lemonade Stand Podcast. It's me and Doug here, and then our friend Aiden, and who's also part of a podcast called The Yard, which is pretty big. And we discuss politics, tech, news, business, all the above in a humorous way. And we're happy to have you on sometime, Gavin.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, man. I love it.
All three of us are very interested in solutions, and
yes, we're fellow podcasters.
Yes, on the same playing field, really.
I don't know, man. I mean, my first podcast. I hope gets some credit. My first podcast was with Marshawn Lynch, which I still do. Beast Mode. And we talk about sport, anything but politics.
Hell yeah.
Anything but politics.
Sure.
And of course, I got the Gavin Newsom show, talks, pretty much all about politics.
Yeah.
I want to see your fantasy lineup, Governor.
I'm ready. Let's share.
Yeah. Anything you want to leave the people with, Governor Newsom? Thanks again.
Just gratitude, man. Anybody. I just know this for a fact. You can't, I'll defend this point of view. Kingdom come, man. If you're tuned in, you're not checked out. If you're tuned in, you're not falling prey to cynicism, and you're taking whatever anxiety and fear you have about this country, and you're stepping up, and that's pretty powerful and amazing. And so I just want to express again, just deep gratitude and respect. You're the antidote by definition. All of you are the antidote to that cynicism that a lot of people are feeling out there. So just stick with it. We're going to get through this moment. We always do, but we won't get through this moment unless we all recognize we have voice and we have a choice. And the fact that you've chosen to join today is a big deal. Keep sharing your voice with passion and action. As they say in church, as we pray, move our feet. And so get out there, agitate, be authentic, learn from, don't follow others.
Thank you so much. And we're going to have links to stay in touch with everybody, places to support folks at winthefightlive.com. You can join our Substack, connect with us. We'll get you connected with all these great participants. Thank you again. We really appreciate your time, and we hope to do this again with you sometime soon.
Appreciate the opportunity. That was a blast.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks, everybody.